Hey everybody, Joel over at importsauce.com. Today I wanted to talk about a product. We're not going to do a review. We will cover a little bit of install, but I want to talk about repurposing or using parts that aren't specifically made for your vehicle application, but getting them to work when there are no other options. Today we are talking about the intercooler charge pipe for P1 Volvos. We have went ahead and purchased the AWD kit. Comes with the hoses, comes with the new pipe, and we're just going to talk about how we're going to make this application work for the all-wheel drive system. Stick around. So doing a lot of research on upgrading intakes, it's not a big deal when you're talking about the major portions of that. The air intake, Elevate makes some, K&N has an application, there's a few others out there. The turbo pipe that goes down from the back into the turbo. But when you're looking at the application for the actual under the engine, it's going to be the intercooler charge pipe. There are no applications out there listed for all-wheel drive P1s. So not to say that we're trying to steal the credit from Michael Halleck. He's actually already done this video, but I wanted to specifically illustrate that the all-wheel drive system will take the front-wheel drive pipe from Elevate. And we'll show you the same thing that Michael Halleck brought out to the world. And really, this isn't an effort to steal any credit from what he did. This is because I've done a ton of research and just looking for the all-wheel drive pipe. And nobody makes it, nobody talks about it. I found it on Michael's channel, and we just want to get this out there in as many places on the website, more YouTube content, so all of us all-wheel drive people know that this option will work. So essentially, let's take a look side by side, the Elevate unit and the factory unit, right? So over here, I forgot the spec on there, but it is going to be compared to 2.5-inch pipe on the Elevate. We can see the difference there. One thing you will notice is that the shape of the actual pipe is a little bit different. As Michael Halleck pointed out in his video, the endpoints are relatively close. The difference here is we're floating around the oil pan, and here, the transfer case, and here we don't have to worry about that on front-wheel drive vehicles. But he did note that the mounting points are going to be in the same spot, and with the appropriate hardware, we'll talk about that in a second, you are going to be able to get this to work on the all-wheel drive, and you're not going to have any clearance issues. So another thing about the Elevate kit is we see the factory rubber hoses. These things are weak, cheap, flimsy. The new ones 4-ply, and the brand new clamps are included on there. So you get both pipes for each end of the hard pipe so that you can connect up to the intercooler and the other pipe up to the turbo manifold. So we have that. What we're going to do here is Michael Halleck had pointed out that the same factory mount points are going to come into play. And what he did was the initial bolt that's going to come off is going to be M7 and the same thread pitch. We went down to the hardware store and we got 3 variations of a longer one. A little bit longer, a little bit longer, and a little bit longer. And then what he did was just place a spacer onto it so that you didn't have this exposed. It would still thread, it would stop at exactly the right moment when you needed to clear the things that the all-wheel drive system poses a problem for these intercooler charge pipes. Unfortunately, COVID and just metal shortage, whatever, at the hardware store, they didn't have any spacers that we could use. So what we did is we spent a couple bucks and we're just gonna run washers to run our spacer out of that. That way we didn't have to drive all over town looking for a spacer. The washers were there and it's gonna work just the same way. So we'll take some pictures on this. And hopefully this is just, again, to let the all-wheel drive P1 community know that the Elevate intercooler charge pipe is going to work, and it's going to be essentially one of the only options that you have to get that increased volume of air inside the zone. So stick around, we'll narrate some install pictures and let you know how easy it really is.
The first thing that we did was remove anything that was in the way of us removing any bolts and hose clamps. This included the front bumper to access easily the hose clamp that goes from the intercooler to the hardpipe, as well as the skid plate underneath to get the brackets and bolts out of the brackets for the hardpipe, and the passenger wheel and fender liner to access the clamp on the bottom of the turbo housing. Here, in this short montage of images, it shows us tightening up the new silicone hose to the turbo manifold. You can also use these as reference to show where you will remove that. You can access the clamp, depending on it, the orientation, up behind the axle or through the passenger wheel well. From here, it's time to take off the actual bolts that hold the clamps onto the oil pan and the car. This one is in front of the oil pan, facing the front of the car. This is the new one, but on the old one, there are actually 2 bolts there. So 2 will come off, and in the final new hardpipe, 1 will go on. Next, you'll file the oil pan back towards the rear end of the car, and you will see the other bracket that the hardpipe is attached to. Again, we are looking at pictures of the new hardpipe, but this is to show you reference of the location. Go ahead and remove that bolt, and at that point, you are now ready to loosen the hose clamps and drop the old stock hardpipe. From here, you can head back over to the turbo manifold and loosen up the hose clamp on the bottom of the factory hose. Pull gently down on the hardpipe towards the ground, the floor, and it will pop that hardpipe out of the factory hose clamp. At that point, you can continue to loosen the top and pull that whole hose off, as the new Elevate kit will come with a new one for you. At this point, we can head up to the front of the vehicle, just below where the front bumper would be sitting if it was still on. You will see where the factory hardpipe is meeting the factory rubber hose. You're going to go ahead and loosen that clamp, and at this point, the hardpipe is completely free. The 2 hose clamps on each end are free and the hose is off, as well as the 3 bolts that were retaining it to the oil pan area. From here, the last piece of the factory system is going to be removing the factory hose where it connects to the driver's side of the intercooler. So we found it easiest to remove the bumper to access that if you can get to it without, but we didn't see an option on ours. Go ahead and remove that, and now you have 2 hoses and a factory hardpipe sitting on your garage floor. From here, let's install in reverse order. We started by putting the first bolt, which is on the front of the oil pan, in first, and gave it a little bit of torque just to hold the pipe in place while we fiddled with the spacers on the next one. The next bracket, we were going to use our washers. It's a good thing that we grabbed about 15 of them. We used just not enough, so we went back and we included a little bit more, and we just kept adding until it was just the perfect amount of clearance between the pipe and anything else underneath the car. The way that we tested it was by sticking a dollar bill through and making sure that it wasn't caught up. Then we knew that it was clearance and free from anything in there. Next, we went back to the turbo manifold, slid the new Elevate hose on, and secured the top clamp just to make sure it was sturdy. And we actually, as per Michael Halleck's instructions, we left a little bit of room. Typically, you're going to push your hose all the way up to where it meets on the turbo housing. We left enough space where the hose was going to grab onto it, but then also still drop down just a little bit more. This is going to take into account the extra space from the washers and the distance that this hose is going to have to meet. We secured it as tight as we could, and we did a super hard pull test to make sure that it was secure, and with all of our body weight, it was good to go. From there, we inserted the end of the hardpipe And then it made a solid connection on the new pipe as well, and we were able to hose clamp it and give it the good old tug, and it did not move at all, so we knew that we were not going to have any blowouts or any pop-offs. One side note is the metal elbow that is protruding the view of the hose is actually the easy drain ball valve oil plug. Check out another video on here that we did. This is a really cool thing. You pull off your factory drain plug for your oil pan, and you put this ball valve with the elbow in, and it makes oil changes very simple. We did our first oil change a couple days with this. We simply opened the valve and walked away. Came back, wiped it off, closed the valve, no wrenching, no torquing. It was just a really cool product that we recommend to anyone. At this point, the new hose and clamps are secured both on the turbo manifold to the end of the hard pipe. Our two brackets, including the one with the new longer bolt and the spacers, is included and installed and torqued. We move back up to the front of the vehicle and we slide the new elbow, which is going to go from elbow hose, which is going to go from the hard pipe up to the intercooler on. We tighten that down. It slides in, has plenty of room to grip the clamp, and we are going to move on to the final clamp. Okay, back up on the intercooler. We are just going to slide that into the hose onto the intercooler. Make sure it fits all the way up against the notch, and then again tighten that clamp down as far as it will go. Here's a final picture of everything installed. We can see the hose clamps, we can see the brackets, we can see the new longer bolt with the washers, all the way from hose clamp to hose clamp. Clearance is perfect, it does not touch anything underneath, and when we put the skid plate back on, it is perfect as well. So, at this point, you are going to put all the crap back on your car, bumper, fender liner, wheels, anything that you took off, and you are all set. If you have any of the other Elevate accessories, such as the bypass valve, the intake, just be prepared that your blow-off sound is going to be a lot louder. Hope this helped. Product link for the Elevate hardpipe, intercooler hardpipe, is going to be in the description, but you can also just hop over to elevatecars.com. As always, importsauce.com, and all of our socials at importsauce.